they're sending me to Copenhagen, or at least I'm going to Copenhagen, and they're putting me up. So I'm super excited to be going to Tier1 Con. Me and Cyrus are just off. I mean, not quite off the tail end of coming back from Bellevue, but I mean, you're kind of still near there. But
it still feels like
we
just got back.
Yeah. Right? Like it literally feels like that was yesterday that we were there. First off, how did you like going to going to a big con?
Oh, it was great. It was, my first one since the bad times, as we say.
Yeah.
I went to Command Fest Seattle in like 2019 or whatever year that was, and that was really fun, but I also was just kind of like there alone and didn't like know anybody or anything like that. So this was like a whole different experience. Knew a ton of people, met a ton of people from the Twitterverse. And yeah, it was a great time. Super fun. Played so many games. Toxrel had a good showing. So
as far as good showings, that's something that I'm like kind of spinning about right now. I'm trying to figure out what to do about going out to this Tier1 Con. And I'm like, my whole thing is like, sure, yeah, I'm going to go and I'm going to wing it and see what I do and have a good time. And then just recently, like with me trying to figure out like this Dhalsim deck that I've been accused of one tracking recently, like how viable it is, if I can jump in there and do like sit down at a CEDH table. And if it's going to like make everyone berserk that I'm playing this totally like off kilter thing, or if it's like, just like I'm kind of there. Almost, it feels like as a fluke that I'm going out to this thing. So like just show up and be like, yeah, I'm going to play the thing that I've been enjoying playing and see what happens. Because I know a lot of people. I looked into this event, and there's been like qualifiers to the main event on Saturday and Sunday. It's the CEDH World Championship.
Wow.
And I'm pretty sure from the email that I got, it looks like I'm like in the main event, or if not, then I'm going to be in the qualifiers and then in the main event. But if I just sit down with like, haha, like it's Dhalsim and spiders and shit, like if I'm going to be like undermining the hard work that people put in to get there. So throughout the course of this kind of video, what we're going to plan on doing is talk to some people about what they think about tournaments and about what they think about what I should be doing out there and kind of what the meta might be like. We've got Death Magic, who we're going to give a call to and talk about, because I've always heard like mystifying things about the European meta.
Yeah,
and
same.
That's the only person I know in Europe. So we're going to see what he has to say about that. And we're going to talk to Dylan from Play to Win, because he was out at Malmo for the qualifiers. Malmo. So we're going to see what he has to say about that. And then we're going to talk to CJ just a little bit about SleepyThanos, about tournament prep, because he played in a tournament literally yesterday. And I want to hear what he has to say about getting ready for tournaments and stuff like that. So I know you recently put Toxrel on the database. What was your application process like for that, Cyrus?
I submitted the deck like probably a couple days after the spoiler of Toxrel. The first time it was just like, go to Moxfield, add staples. Here's the commander. It's like kind of a bad ad nos deck with extra counter spells. That didn't get approved, but another deck did. And then I kind of worked with
someone else's Toxrel deck.
With the Toxrel deck that got approved, took some ideas from that. We had the Discord started by Skylar, and so we could do more kind of collaboration in there. And so then I just, it was just, I think the second time that I applied on the CDB, it got approved. It was not very many cards off of the one that was already on the database, but I think the primer was a little more in depth, and I was taking it in a more clear, like off ad nos onto like a heavy control strategy kind of thing that made it different enough that I think that's why they approved it. It's like, we've already said it's tried and true because we got another list, but this one's maybe like leaning harder into some themes that I think are the direction that commander should be going.
Do you feel like having a full like dedicated Discord for it helped your chances? Like, was that something that you think they took into consideration, or was it really just the primer? What do you think really led to the final like thing clicking into place?
I'm not 100% sure. I feel like having a Discord helps, but I know they also, a lot of decks get approved that are in sort of the bigger Discords. I think really just showing that you're discussing, like you're playing the deck a lot. you're
Yep.
discussing what's working and not working with other people. I mean, I think those are like two kind of major things, and and that you have a primer that kind of reflects that like you are kind of,
Okay.
it's not just a how to play, but it's also kind of like a living document in terms of just
Yep.
like, I noticed
Okay.
in these sorts of games, like I think having like a matchup section shows that you're like really paying attention when you're playing the deck, and taking a lot of different things into consideration so that you're really trying to refine it and make it better.
So this is all stuff that's like really new to me as far as like thinking about a deck and thinking about basically the serious applications of it. I've been playing this goofy Dhalsim deck that I've been jamming into every CEDH pile I can find, and or CEDH pod I can get it into, and I've been having decent results. And what's cool is because I made it in this modular list, I've been switching cards in and out as I find that they work better or worse. So I think as far as like matchups and card viability, like I do have some strengths there. It's the discussion part that's going to be something that's difficult for me to figure out.
Yeah,
So you've seen this deck perform in pods, mostly with Tox roll matchups, but other stuff too. How do you think it's going to do if I put it through a tournament setting? What do you think? Because what I found is that like if I go up against like a control deck and two turbo decks, it's going to have a hard time unless I drop like a turn one deafening silence. Like I'm pretty much on the back end because it takes 2-3 turns to kind of get the engine running. And then once the engine is running, I play a game of like slowing people down by a little bit and getting card value to kind of like just slowly build up like this more and more threatening board state while everybody is stalled out. I'm worried about that in a more cutthroat environment. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so the first thing that comes to mind is the last Monarch event that I played in. Maybe the last Monarch event that happened, although I guess maybe they're doing the qualifiers for the tier 1 stuff too. So I don't know. I don't want to say that. But the last one I played in, Marchesa, Magda won. So I think even hardcore tournaments, there's room, and if not, maybe like the perfect space for a deck that's kind of out of left field to come and put up good results, because I think a lot of like people's planning for how the game is going to go happen as soon as commanders are revealed, or at least that is how it felt playing Toxroll, and whenever it was revealed versus like Najila, or I played against a I know it's not actually pronounced Chulane. I'm gonna butcher it because I can't remember the actual pronunciation.
Anton, Commander Funky Pants is real serious about it. He says Holland.
Hullen, that's right.
I think it's Holland.
I was about to say
We'll have to
Kool-Aid,
ask,
and I was like, I know that's definitely not right.
fucking Gavin or somebody next time.
Yeah, but like play it, and so even like during that revealing the commanders thing, people are like, oh well, I have to kill you first because your deck is such a like, an answer to mine. And so I think yours might kind of like Dhalsim might be on the opposite end, where people are like Dhalsim, Selesnya, CDH, like maybe
same stupid reaction I always get.
Yeah.
What does that do? And then by the time I'm drawing 4 cards a turn, they're like, this fucking guy's drawing 4 cards a turn.
Yeah, and so I think really it could do well that way, and that you'll be kind of like lower on the threat assessment, like the initial threat assessment that happens in a pod if someone sees like Tim Necrom, Najila, whatever deck they're playing, and Dhalsim, they're gonna be like, okay, maybe this deck has some hate bears, maybe it'll slow some things down, but I need to really be worried about these like known entities first. So you might dodge even interaction that way by being able to land some dumb little creatures that are going to start drawing you cards, because no one's like, who cares about taking
until I
these
drop
things?
the super sorry to cut you off, until I drop like the super worrying cards, until like Odric or Shalai comes down and people are, oh, okay, like
now these are about to start being threatening.
chill out there,
I also think just the fact that it draws so many cards, like it hits this point where you start to feel like they always have it point, because you're just churning through so many cards. So if you are, I could trail off into so many different trails here, but basically I think like it is a strong deck, and if you kind of play into knowing that you can't keep up with the turbo decks, hoping you're landing in pods where there is a control deck so that they can stop the turbo decks from winning, while you're just kind of doing innocuous, playing
What it
some
does.
creatures,
Yeah.
whatever, drawing a card or two, maybe even moving to dumpies and just discarding random shit. And they're like, okay, whatever, I'm stopping the turbo players. Then you really get, your engine going. It's really like kind of a mid-range.
It's extremely mid-range.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think it could very much be viable. I don't think it'll like piss anyone off or make them feel like
Yeah.
their pods aren't like up to
Like, oh, this
snuff.
guy showed up with a joke. Yeah. Because
Like
like I hate feeling like that guy. Like the
yeah,
guy who showed up with something that's like throwing up a non-game and
yeah.
making people feel like it's imbalanced. So that's something I really want to avoid.
But
I'm
your
looking.
list impacts the board. You've got hate bears, you've got interaction. You're not just like gonna sit there and be like, oh, I did absolutely nothing. Like you could even, I mean, you know how to play the game too, so that even if you're not directly impacting something, you'd be like, hey, I can throw a swords at something to help you draw a card, so maybe you draw into interaction or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think as long as you're like kind of on that level,
Yeah.
it's gonna work out fine.
As long as I take the game seriously, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm looking at throwing in another couple of protection things. Like I know there's like a couple in green that are, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a 1 mana like people like instant speed. Like nope, it's got hexproof all of a sudden.
For like
Like
single target or for whole board?
for single target.
Yeah,
I'm thinking about
I really like Vines of Vastwood for that one. I don't know if you run that one, but that's a big favorite. Yeah.
I might switch that in. And I'm thinking about like, even it's greedy because the land base is already greedy, but something like I got this reliquary tower.
Nice.
I was thinking about tossing that in there so that I just don't have to move the dumpies anymore, so I can just be like, I got 45 cards or whatever. But then it makes those windfalls real bad. So what we're going to do is I want to find out a little bit more about the current meta. But before we do that, I want to switch over and show you what showed up in the mail. So I got the actual card, so I can play a tournament legal version of this deck. So I'm gonna rip it right here. I waited and everything. We got the foil seal. I'm super excited about this. Cool. We got the Street Fighter stuff in there. So I've been running this really cool version of it on top of a forest. Extremely legit for it's been like months now.
I know. So I totally forgot that it wasn't out already.
Yep. Yes. So this is pretty. We got Street Fighter on here, traditional foil edition. I don't know that there was a non-traditional foil edition. Of course, curved as fuck right out of the box. Gotta love that. Comes with a Hadouken lightning bolt, which is honestly gorgeous.
That's pretty sweet, actually.
I was hoping that it would come with like, that Viscera Seer or whatever. But it comes with a pretty dope lightning bolt, which is kind of cool. These are so badly curved, so I love that. But I'm really, really, really excited to be able to slot in an actual Dhalsim to my actual Dhalsim deck. So we're going to open it up here. We got E Honda also, so people have suggested running E Honda, but he costs 6 mana.
Wow.
We got Ryu in Boros, Ken in Boros, Blanca in Gruul, Chun-Li. The printing on these is okay, and there's my real Dhalsim. I finally have a real Dhalsim. So the printing on these is like all right. It looks shiny, maybe a little faded, less faded than my extremely fake version though. So we're gonna sleeve this right up into a perfect hard. And then I think what we're going to do is we're going to give our buddy Death Magic a call. So I'm going to cut this short right now and we're going to give him a call. But thank you for talking to me about like a little bit about, just a bunch of general stuff.
For sure. Yeah.
There's so much more I could touch on, but really what I'm worried about is like, okay, if I'm going to take this seriously and run this, then like, how should I treat it? How should I treat this as a serious deck? So, yeah.
Yeah, I think you're in the perfect position to run a deck that you're familiar with, you're excited about, and attacks the meta at an interesting angle. Or at least hopefully it does. Death can maybe fill you in on what the meta is like. Meta expert. I know he said he's not playing a whole ton over there either, but
yeah, he's not in Copenhagen, but we'll see what the story is.
Yeah.
All right, so let's cut over to that call. Let's see if I can make that happen. So I've got Death Magic on the call here. I'm going to Copenhagen in like 3 days. So I'm obviously very, very prepared right now. Me and Cyrus just spent a little while talking about the viability of the deck that I've been mainlining. I've been accused of kind of one tracking, is this Dhalsim deck that I love so, so much. I just literally just got the secret layer. I got the real card. I finally got the real one. Literally came in the mail 3 hours ago. What I found, it's in preparation for this, something I've been really thinking about. Like, I've been watching you doing the MLC games, and I'm kind of looking at these games and been trying to gather a little bit of information about the games in Tier 1. I know that there have been preliminaries and qualifiers and stuff for what is basically the World Championship of CEDH. And something I've found, and I know you're not in Copenhagen specifically, but my traditional American extremely poor geography is kind of leading me to think like, okay, well, it's in Europe. And something that I've always been led to believe is that there's a difference in the metas, and that they're like in America, like what I've been led to believe is like people are always it's always push, it's go, go, go. And there's a much more careful approach to CEDH. Like, you always have to be backed up from the European perspective, that there is this difference in the metas. Now, is that something that you have found? I know you've been playing in your local meta for as long as you've been there, and you've recently had the chance to play in the MLC with people all over the world. Is there a perceivable difference in this?
I would say there is. I would not be surprised if you would find way more stacks, heavy, and adaptive lists over in Copenhagen or over general in Europe towards how we have it indifferently, where we have mostly storm decks.
Yep.
Or just gotta go fast, like Cody, for example.
Yep.
I would not be surprised, and I'm even for sure, and that because you're playing, as you said, Dhalsim, which is a green-white deck,
Yep.
you might have even more chance, because first of all, it's not a heavy play deck, and even when I just looked at one of the tournaments locally, there is a winner was on Sigarda stacks,
which is probably not terribly far off. Now, we did a little bit of recording, and I'm going to reference it before this, but my audio was all messed up. Now, you said that people are basically relying on a deck that has a lot of answers, a lot of stacks pieces, and then a heavy beater to finish the game. So we're looking at like big combats and stuff like that. Is that correct?
I would assume so. I mean, people can be just like, you know what, let's wing it and bring it, but I would not be shocked if you find just stonewalled through match and match and match. You just have to be ready to play the grindy game.
Okay.
Even from the deck list you saw in me and MLC, I was mostly mid-range and control with one turbo deck only, and even that one I played like a mid-range deck.
Okay. So yeah, and you looked into stuff that was very much, you're talking about your MLC decks, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so you looked at stuff that you're kind of more comfortable playing, that you find kind of suited to your play style?
I would say I always like to have a backup idea. That's why I always prefer having more ways to win, more ways to get through, always have the answer. I always go build with answer first and then go for the combo, not combo first and how to protect it.
If you were going to be taking part in this event, in a big CEDH tournament with one deck, what would you bring?
Well, right now I would probably guess, because I have the most experience, would be my maybe a slightly updated version of Armix Scrum, as I used to play it in MLC. However, maybe I would even go with a slower version of Into Tevesh Thrasios.
Okay.
Where I can just grind the value, and then just suddenly, boom, I won.
So you don't think there's going to be much of a big turbo meta, or if they are, they will be the outliers?
I am sure people prefer turbo. I know there are probably a lot of Inalla players and maybe even Cody heads.
And just hearing Inalla gets me like, ugh! There's a fella in the old kitchen table play group that I was in back in Brooklyn, Jorman, who runs an Inalla deck, and I've played against a few other people with it behind the wheel on it, and it just hearing it, I think like, oh god, like it's one of those decks you just gotta be ready with something, even if it's just one little poke there, like like putting a stick in the bicycle spokes, right? Like even if it's just one little piece to make him trip up, you got to be prepared for that. But Inalla scares the shit out of me, honest. If I'm speaking honestly, you got to be ready for that one. Like, and it's like it's not be ready like eventually. Like you got to be ready in your opening hand turn 1 to be able to mess with that
I
deck.
had a friend who, well, I have a friend, not had, but he plays also dual commander, and also he was on an event for multiplayer commander, and he was piloting an Inalla deck list there, and he just wrecked them. Everybody came in. That was the time when Ragavan was first spoiled, and half the tournament was Ragavans. It was like 90 people, and 50 of them were on Ragavan.
Yeah.
And his deck list was just designed to wreck that. And
That's
and he won.
amazing. And he made a really meta busting deck. I really like hearing that. So before we go, I'm going to cut it off. But before we go, do you have any advice to me for going into a big tournament?
Drink a lot of water.
Okay.
Believe in yourself, and be ready for crazy weather, especially here in Europe these days.
Crazy weather. It's been hot there, correct? Is that
hot, high humidity, low wind, and
low
it's
wind?
Just been insane.
Well, listen, I'm out here in Rhode Island. I'm definitely used to the humidity. It's brutal. I'm in a basement right now. It's something I live in. They call people from Rhode Island, they call swamp Yankees. Because it's like it's very, very marshy out here for sure. So it's definitely warm and humid. So it's but I appreciate everything that you brought to the table today, everything you had to say about it, Death. Thank you so much for taking a few minutes to answer some questions that to me like really felt baseless, but you've been extremely validating. Like it's really, really good to hear that like my weird perception of like there being a difference in the meta is actually not too far off. So thank you so much for taking a few minutes today, Death.
And thanks for having me, and also good luck.
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. I've got Dylan here from Play to Win. He agreed to do a last minute call so that I could ask him a million questions about me being totally unprepared. So I'm going to Copenhagen in like, what's today? Sunday on Wednesday. So like 2 days, 3 days. And I'm doing it like I do everything by the absolute seat of my pants. So I have very little prep done as far as what I'm getting myself into. You recently went to Tier 1. Is it Malmo? Malmo? How do you know how to pronounce it? You were there.
Yeah, Malmo, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
So I just talked with Death Magic for a few minutes about the differences in the United States versus the European meta. So that's something that I had always thought was like this really like weird mystical, like there's this like being from the United States, like we all play by the seat of our pants and we'll like push immediately in games and stuff like that. Whereas the European meta is much more reserved. People will always make sure that they have backup. You recently got a chance to play in, was it the qualifiers?
No, so actually when I went, we didn't actually play in the qualifiers. We were kind of off to the side, just playing with whoever wanted to come up and play with us throughout the day.
Oh, awesome.
I was watching the qualifiers and I was checking on all the tables and stuff, but Cameron and I didn't actually play in the events.
Okay. So that's something that I've also been trying to piece together is like that there have been qualifiers and like what the matches have been like. Now you played, my guess is you played with people who were also playing in the qualifiers. Like you got pickup games with people who were playing and you probably played against the decks that they were playing all weekend.
It did, yeah. Honestly, we played like probably more casual than we did CDH.
Oh, awesome.
Just like what people came up to us with was with casual decks, and we brought casual decks, so we played. But we did play with a lot of the CDH players too, and I played with a lot of the guys from CDH TV and some of the others that were doing well in the tournament. Got to play with them as well. So yeah, we did get to.
So what did you find that there was like a difference as far as play style in the European meta?
Sometimes. So what I found, the 3 decks that won the qualifiers were Corvold, Najeela, and Blue Farm. Which to me felt like very like, yeah, that seems
those
right.
I've heard of those.
Yeah, like they're decks that have like a pretty linear strategy but have a lot of play to them. So that made a ton of sense to me. A lot of the decks that I saw, it was a lot more 4 and 5 color good stuff decks than I think you see in like the content realm, because I think a lot of like YouTube content and a lot of where people get a lot of their CDH information is from people on YouTube maybe trying out different things. But at the tournament, I found that it seems like pretty much everyone is on some version of 4 or 5 color good stuff pile. That's what I was seeing more than anything else.
Okay, and so it's a deck that's going to have like all of your staple cards, all of your best cards, all of the.
That's what it seemed like. There was other things. There were, I think on day 1 there was a decent more stacks decks from what I was seeing than on day 2 and 3. I think maybe people realized that the tournament maybe they didn't want to go to time or something, so they brought their fast deck on day 2 or 3 or something like that. But it seemed like a lot of the decks were fast decks. Like I didn't see a lot of like I don't know. I'm trying to think of some of like the tier 2 decks that you see pop up a lot, but I didn't really see any of that. For me, it seemed like I saw a lot of decks that I would consider some version of like tier 1.
Yeah, your traditional, like whether it be a blue farm or a Timnathras or a Najeela, just
Thrasios pile, Najeela pile, Kenrith pile. Those are most of the commanders that I was seeing. But that's just like what I was seeing on the tables. I don't know what the actual numbers say. They might be a little bit different, but from what I was observing over like the players, that's kind of what it seemed like I saw.
Awesome. Well, I really appreciate getting a little bit of a rundown of kind of what to expect. And that's, I mean, as far as like being tried and true in a tournament setting, like that sort of stuff gets filtered to the top. Like it's very, very clear, like your really, really wild fringe decks will continue to hold pace, and you'll see them being piloted by the people who kind of like when they sit behind it, like you could see the like steam coming out of their ears, like the equations coming out of the back of their head.
Specialists are always going to be able to do well with the Magdas and the Yevas and those style of decks. Specialists will always do well, but in my experience over time, the more colors you got, and specifically like the more aggressive of a deck you have, those are the decks that will rise to the top. And more often than not, lately, it just seems like, why not play Timna Crom? Not to say that there's a ton of other decks, but if you're going to go to the tournament and you're going to try to win at all costs, Timna Crom is just a really good one.
You know what really helps is having 2 cards in the command zone that are card draw on a stick. Like that's always going to feel good. Being like, oh, do I play my first card that draws me cards or my second card that draws me cards?
And their ability to mulligan so well is like one of the reasons why I think they're so good. Since we're in singleton, since we have the extra mulligans because we're in multiplayer, you get to abuse the mulligan to hell. And then Timna Crom says, even if you mulligan to 3, you can just find like a Jewel Lotus and we're fine. We'll claw our way out.
Yep, you just go to some big mana and you end up drawing cards. But that's been the way of that deck for for sure. So how did you like the convention overall? Did you like the way it was organized? Did you have a good time?
It was awesome. I mean, I can only talk from my point of view, and I went as a content creator. So I was off to the side and people were like trying to play the whole time. So for me, I had a blast. I thought it was like the most fun thing ever. The tournament that we were in, like the actual building, was enormous. There was tons of free space to play. I thought that part was really cool. I did hear a couple rumblings that the tournament had a couple of troubles. The Discord wasn't working well, but I mean, the tournament, it still went through. Everyone played their Magic, but I think there were some delays and stuff. That's kind of to be expected at like any tournament, is like, there's probably going to be a delay or two.
The Squire bot, right? Like everybody's always like, no, Squire bot. Like,
but so from my point of view, it was awesome. We played Magic. Everyone was super nice. Everyone was really friendly. Everyone had a great time playing Magic. It was really, I really felt like a super positive environment, and I had a blast.
That's beautiful. That's honestly exactly what I want to hear. The other thing that I'm like trying to be very, very conscious of is that like I'm gonna be me. I'm gonna have the pompadour and a big loud shirt. So I'm already like extremely noticeable, but I'm like in my head, I'm always trying to kind of like get out of my own head about being like that guy, and like being that guy is gonna be even more pronounced here because it's not just that guy, but it's that American guy. And I'm trying really hard to like kind of be like, okay, like I'm gonna be an outlier. Like that's gonna be the kind of way of it the whole time. Did you find that people were like, oh my God, you're from America? Like, did you get a lot of that, or was it just like people were just psyched to see you?
No, I think people were psyched to see me. I will say, with your bright neon green colors, you will certainly stick out. Like the one thing that we were trying to like notice about like the fashion is like it seemed there was a lot less neon colors and a lot less big logos. Like America, like you could pick out the American who was like wearing like Cameron, who was wearing like a bright neon green shirt. It didn't seem like I saw as much of that.
Okay.
So you might stand out, but it's okay. For the most part, people were understanding. I think they thought I was taller than they thought and Cameron was shorter than they thought. Besides that, Yeah, no, no one really made fun of me too much for like talking with my hands and being loud as hell. Because that was one of the things I was nervous about too. My mom was like, "Don't be too loud and obnoxious over there. They might think you're, it's too over the top." And I was like, "All right, I'll try to hold back." But in the convention center, I can't help it. I'm like screaming about cards. I can't help it.
Well, it's loud and exciting to start with, and like honestly, like I feel like we run a little bit of a parallel. Like that's the element. Like that's you throw me in a situation.
My job is to like be excited about Magic while I'm at the like event center. Like I want everyone to have fun while they're there. Like my goal is for everyone I'm playing with to have fun. That's like my main goal. So they say, "Oh, that was great. We should go to that more next time Play-Doh is there or something."
Awesome.
But yeah, that's I was just like, it's fine. I'm just gonna be loud, be who I am.
Well, that's beautiful and it's validating as well. Like for me, that's very much like, all right, like just not lean into it, but just like forge straight ahead. Like I'm going to be me the whole time. And that's going to be,
people got to stick together. We got to keep talking over each other loud as hell.
And that's why they invited me out there, right? Is to be me. So I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much for going over a little bit of your experience with Tier 1, with the meta out there. Like it's something that continually fascinates me is that like, on a much broader scale, like continental, you see different play styles, but like it's something that I'm thinking more and more about looking at is like the pocket metas that you start to see as well, like in LGSs and all that sort of stuff. And that's a whole nother, I think that's a conversation we've honestly had before. It's like a big deja vu out of it, but it's something that's super, super fascinating to me. So I'm really excited to go someplace new and kind of see what the story is. Dylan, thank you so much for talking a little bit with me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to talking with you more in the future. I'll let you know what it looks like on the back end. I'll be like, whoa, you were right, or whoa, it was way off. Copenhagen's way different. So
one thing that I will say, if you didn't know already, just as like a final remark, the sun sets at like 11 p.m. right now over there, and it goes up at 5 a.m. So
okay.
So when you get out of the arena at like 8 or 9 at night or whatever, it's still daylight out for like hours. So it makes you want to just like keep on going forever and ever.
Oh,
and
awesome.
So just be careful about that. You don't get too worn out.
Well, I'm going to be, I'm rooming with Ken, Stack DDH. So I've interacted with him a fair amount online, but we'll see what happens when you put two of us in a room together. If we're like, if it's exponential.
You're going to start like going extra. The light bulbs are going to pop because of the energy in that room.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again so much. I really appreciate it, Dylan, and we'll talk soon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So you went to a tournament. I know you play pretty seriously. You go out to play on the regular, but you don't do tournaments too much. What went through your head as far as doing tournament prep? What were you thinking of doing when you were getting ready for this? Were you slotting in specific cards? Were you getting into a specific mindset? Did you go through a routine? Did you go to Mom Spaghetti in front of the mirror? Like, what were you doing?
Mostly I wanted to try to just get more games in. Like in general, as many games as I can with the deck that I was going to play. As far as like meta and stuff, I'm like, you can never know really on what people are going to play. So I figured I'd just play my game and worry about my deck and making sure my deck runs as it needs. I think making sure that I know what to do in every tight spot and hopefully try to get out of everything and try to win every game.
What deck did you play?
I played Tim the Crom, Priest Thief, by Sinestra, by Rebel, by SleepyThanos.
Okay, so you played like the full on like tried and true Freeze Thief list, and now you've been playing that a fair amount recently. Is that correct?
Yeah, I changed Brea and from that into Freeze Thief.
Oh, awesome!
It's more fun for me to play.
And you've been enjoying it.
Yeah, I do enjoy it. I like drawing cards, so that's what the deck does.
Are there specific cards that you're running that aren't on the traditional list? Is there anything specific that you put in there that like you were like, I gotta play this, that you don't see other people playing?
I think the new background I've been using, the Guild Artisan, the 2-mana one where if you attack the player with the highest life, you get like 2 treasures.
Yep.
That one put in a lot of work for me on the other Thursday last Thursday when I was play testing with like friends. And I don't think Professional Facebreaker I think has also been very good. I don't know if it's on like many lists. Like Rebel keeps on changing the list every day. So it's like she keeps on like adding things and taking things apart, and I'm just like, oh, okay, I don't keep up with it that much, but I just kind of I'm trying that out, and there's another one. Actually, I have the card here. Hold on. There's another card that I'm trying to play. Where is it at? Oh, it's nowhere here. Someone moved it.
That's what happens, right?
Another background. Apparently, backgrounds are pretty good in two partner commanders.
Right? Who would have thought? So and I love it because everybody was like, "What, this background mechanic? Like, fuck that. No one wants nothing to do with that." And what has it been, like 2 months now? And everybody's kind of like, "Oh, like people are starting to say like these are crazy." Like I saw people talking about some deck and some background that I was like, wait, what are you running right now? So it's really cool to see these backgrounds coming into prevalence. Now, did you see, let's talk about the tournament you went to. Did you see a lot of your traditional piles or your like new stuff? Was there any like crazy new spice you ran into or any backgrounds?
No backgrounds that I played against. I think the first game was like Cyrus, the Boros commander, the Voltron commander.
That's wild.
The first part was Cyrus. It was cedh. It was Malcolm Tana, and that was pretty okay.
Malcolm
and
Tana.
I think cedh took that one. Funny enough, the guy playing Malcolm Tana plays Quark Sakashima. He said he didn't want to get hated out the tournament, so he decided to play.
Wow. I know.
My second pod was stacked with another Tim the Crom player, Crom, Thrasios, and Kenrith, and that game like they went to almost time. Like we didn't draw, but we were in the last like turn cycle and someone won. So
that sounds like a crazy game. That sounds spicy.
Thrasios won that. Yeah, no stacks. Everyone was just drawing cards. There was like there was probably 5 dock sides played. Fucking
any big counter wars, like a lot of stuff on the stack with something like that. Like as soon as somebody pushes, like everybody's like,
I tried pushing so many times. I was like, I'm like, there's a time limit. I'm pushing every time I can. The guys I was playing against didn't really seem like they had interaction, but I had like at least one piece of something to try to get through, and they end up having at least one piece as well, and didn't work out for me. And
just every time,
I think I tried pushing probably 3 times, I think. Well, and got my breach exiled from enforcing negation, so that was great. And
brutal.
I think Bastos Oracle was like in the bin, Tainted Pack in the bin, and I think my only outs were like Savine's Wreck, and then try to demonic consultation off the tosses.
Wow.
And maybe a fat. There was actually the mnemonic betrayal would have been a fat one. So I was just like, oh, okay, like
mnemonic betrayal has been crazy. I've been hearing better and better things about it recently. Like it's always been a hot card, but recently people have been leaning into it really heavy. And especially because games are going to a mid-range place. They're going to a late game place. Graveyards just get full of craziness, you know?
Tutors, just tutors, ramp.
Free interaction.
Yeah, exactly. Free. I messed that up on Thursday. I was really upset. I think I tried to win, and I was like, "Oh, I should have." And like there was a pact and like another like free like spell in someone's bin, and I'm like, "Oh, okay, I could just cast. I should cast Mnemonic Betrayal," but I'm like, no one else has interaction, and I didn't do that, and then I paid the price for it. So that was my mistake.
So I'm looking at possibly bringing Dhalsim into this tournament. Like I've been kind of like back and forth all day. You know, I just talked to Dylan, and he said he just laid in the cut the whole time at the tournament and just sat at the back table, and people came up to him and they just played casual games, and just he wasn't in part of the tournament. I've been thinking about actually bringing this into the tournament this weekend or this next weekend. Dhalsim's been putting in work. You've seen it put in work. If you had any advice for me going into a big tournament, what would it be?
Don't second guess your plays. Well, for you specifically, don't second guess your plays. You worry about other people's moves and maybe they have this and then they don't have jack nothing and then you pass and then someone else wins.
Yep.
So you specifically run Dhalsim. No one knows how to handle it, and it's about a lot of value in that deck, and it's very annoying at times.
Me and I was thinking about it. I've been thinking about like how it just accrues cards and accrues cards. I'm thinking about running a reliquary tower or something to just keep a fat stack instead of dumping cards. But
yeah, maybe fit in a thought vessel as well.
Yeah, thought vessel is pretty good. The 3-mana one I think is a little bit crazy. The Vessel of Endless Water, I think that might be pushing. It's like a 3-mana.
That one's trash.
It's from the new set, and it's 3 mana, makes a mana of any color, and gives you no max hand size. So it's like, but it's 3 mana is crazy.
Yeah,
So, well, I appreciate that, and yeah, you get that because you edited 1 or 2 of the videos. You've seen me deep in the tank over and over and over again.
As soon as you draw the card in your upkeep in the tank, and it's like
what it does. What the big thing about it is, I've usually got a tutor, right? I've usually got something that'll tutor to the top of the library. So I draw a card, and then I got to think about, do I play a card now and play my land drop now, or do I go into attacks and then draw cards and then play out my stuff second main?
If combat is not how you win, you always swing and then draw your cards.
Yep.
I've learned that a lot playing like Tim the Crom.
Yep.
Swing in, get the cards, get more cards in your hands, it's more chances as backup, or maybe even a cleaner line. Like always swing. If you don't need, like, Selvala needs combat, so it's like Selvala does that.
You got to do everything pre and then like
pre-combat, so it's like it doesn't. But every other deck that doesn't need that, you should be good to go at that, because you run, like, your thing is like it's a Heliod, right?
Yeah, I got a Heliod Ballista in there, and I got a couple other things. But recently, I've been pushing with the stupid Mana Dork with the -1 counters that goes infinite.
Devoted Druid with the vehicle.
Yeah, Devoted Druid, and turn that into a Buick or whatever, and make mana. And I've been pushing on people with Shalai.
Okay.
Get Shalai out there, make infinite mana, and make everything infinite big.
Yeah. See you later.
Big punches, and with that you can also fuck around by getting under everybody's blocks with the skulk, and then make it big after no blocks are declared. So it's a weird one. It's the timing on it's always really, really weird. I lost your video, but it's all good. Well, I really appreciate the advice about the tournament. We'll see if I remember it to take it while I'm out there. Thank you for taking a few minutes to chop it up with me, man. Thank you.
No problem. You have good luck. Always swing first.
Swing first.
Every time.
And swing first. Always push, and play cards afterwards. Think about your turn after combat.
Exactly.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon, CJ.
All right. Later.
So there you have it. We talked with Cyrus about the viability of Dhalsim in the CEDH meta and how to kind of approach it a little more seriously. We talked with Death Magic from the MLC about the United States versus the European meta and my perceived notions of it, and he really validated me, and I'm so psyched about it. And we talked to Dylan from Play to Win about his experience with Tier 1 Con and how people's decks were out there, what to expect from Tier 1 Con and the CEDH World Championship. And we also talked with CJ about being buddies and kind of what he knows about my personal playstyle and how I should approach, and got a little bit of advice from everybody. I'll try to heed it. I really liked CJ's advice of always push, go to combat first, and worry about playing your spells afterwards, especially knowing Dhalsim. So I'm really excited to have this card. Thank you guys so much for watching my Tier 1 prep video. Catch me live when I'm out there. It'll be at random times, probably real late at night, or no, real early in the day. I'll be live with the selfie stick doing the whole thing with the neon shirts and all that stuff. So catch me out there. Thank you guys again so much for watching. Thank you to Tier 1 Con for featuring me as a guest.